Okay. Today's daf Be'ezus Hashem is daf Lamed Hey, and we will be Be'ezus Hashem start on daf Lamed Dalid Omid Beis by middle of the page. Okay. Amar Papa. This is where we left off. Amar Papa said, Hoisa para genuvaloi. Let's say you have a cow that was stolen. Yet you stole it on a Wednesday, okay? Utvacha b'Shabbos, and then you slaughtered it on Shabbos. Now we learned in the Chumash, it says if you slaughter an animal after you stole it, you pay 4 times as much or 5 times as much. So he slaughtered it on Shabbos. So since it's a knas and he's chayav misa, right, for slaughtering on Shabbos, he's nevertheless going to have to pay the knas, chayav. Why? Shekvarnis chayav begneva koidim shiyovel l'dei iser Shabbos. Since he stole it on Wednesday, he was already obligated to pay back the principal. So what did by slaughtering it on Shabbos, what did he do in addition to that? He, in addition, got himself a fine that he's going to have to pay 4 times as much. Paying a set fine that the Torah said is obligated even if you're getting the death penalty. So therefore, you're going to be chayav to pay the daled b'hei. So imagine they just killed the guy because he was mechal Shabbos, and they go to his family. He says, "By the way, you still owe the one that you stole the cow from. You owe him the principal plus you owe him 4 or 5 times as much." Now, but hoisa pare she'ulalai. Let's say a guy borrowed a cow, utvacha b'Shabbos, and then slaughtered it on Shabbos. Well, when it's borrowed, it's not stolen. When you slaughtered it, well, you had no right to slaughter it. So it's like you're stealing it on Shabbos itself. So if you're stealing it on Shabbos itself, then you're potter from paying. Why? Because since you're stealing it on Shabbos itself, so the obligation of principal originates on Shabbos. We have a klal that when you get the death penalty, only on monetary obligations, you're exempt from any monetary obligation, except a Torah-defined fine. If the Torah sets a fine that you have to pay. Therefore, but the Torah said you pay 4 times as much. But since you're only going to pay, since you're not paying the principal, so you're not going to pay 3 times of nothing because you're not paying the principal. That's why you're going to be exempt from anything. You're just going to get the death penalty. Amalei Rav Acha. What is Rav Papa trying to teach me? The story about a cow? Obviously, makes perfect sense. I don't need Rav Papa to teach me that. In fact, Rabbah taught the same thing with a goat. What did Rav Papa try to teach me? In other words, there's no novel idea in Rav Papa's statement. Amalei. So Rav Ashi explained to Rav Acha that there is one. Rav Papa she'ula asal ashminim. He holds that borrowing he's teaching you something about borrowing. Salka daite chamina. I would have thought. Hoyel v'omer Rav Papa. Rav Papa said that when you borrow something, mishash mishicha hu dischayev le b'mdezoynasa. When you draw the animal, let's say you're borrowing a cow. So as soon as you draw the cow to your reshus, so then you're obligated for the food for the cow. That's when the obligation of borrowing begins. Hochanami, I would have thought Misha She'ela is chayav ba'oinaseha. I might thought from the time that you borrow it, you're responsible if a mishap happens with this cow. So when you're going to steal it later on, the obligation to pay began when you borrowed it. So I would have thought that it's as if you stole it when you're going to shecht it on Shabbos. So a mishap happened with the animal. So if you borrowed it on the Wednesday, from that moment on, your responsibility was to pay for it. It retroactively makes it your responsibility to pay for it. So therefore, the principal you're already obligated from Wednesday. And the Daled V'hei is on Shabbos. I would think you would have to pay Daled V'hei if you borrow a cow and sechten on Shabbos. Kamash Milam, no, that the obligation to pay on a mishap begins not when you borrow it, it's when the mishap happens. And when did this mishap happen? On Shabbos. So, and that's when you began to slaughter it. That's when you stole it. When you steal something on Shabbos, you're not obligated to pay. New situation. Amar Rava said like this. Listen to this. Let's say your father left for you a borrowed cow. He borrowed a cow and then he died. So the kids could be mishtamshim bei kol yemei she'ei lasa. They don't have to return it. They could still use it based on the father borrowing the cow. Mesa, but if the cow dies, now normally when a cow dies and you borrowed it, you have to pay for it. But here the kids didn't borrow it. It was their father that borrowed it. So therefore, ein chayavim ba'insa. They're not obligated on this mishap because they were not the ones that borrowed it. It was their dad who borrowed it and he passed on. Because let's say you find a cow in your father's possessions, right? And you think the cow belongs to your father, but really he borrowed it. And you slaughtered it, and you ate it. So then we go easy on them. They did a mistake. They slaughtered a borrowed cow. They shouldn't have done that. They pay 2/3 of the value of the meat. In other words, we give them a discount. And we say the skins return to the original owner, and you pay 2/3 of the value of the cow. We don't make you pay a full cow. Now, and then the statement continues. But let's say your father was a wealthy guy, and he left over achrayis nechasim, like real estate. Oh, so he had real estate. Chayavim l'sham, they're obligated to pay. So what does this last statement mean? If the father left over real estate, you're obligated to pay. So the Gemara says, some say this statement goes on the beginning. If the cow dies, you're not obligated in Einstein. And the others say it goes on the Sefer. So whoever taught that the statement of the real estate that you're obligated to pay is that when you didn't do anything wrong, if the cow just died on you, you're obligated to pay. You're obligated to pay. Kolshkein al seifa. Certainly, if they slaughtered it, then they have to pay full value because the father left over real estate. Upligi de Rapapa. This argues against Rapapa because Rapapa said that when a mishap happens, the obligation to pay begins when the mishap happens. If they slaughtered it, according to Rapapa, they would. When did the mishap happen? In the kids' possession, when the kids owned it, and that's when the obligation to pay for a mishap. So who cares if the father left over real estate? That real estate was not pledged for the loan. So these people argue Rapapa, and they hold that Rava would argue and hold that no, when you borrow something, your real estate is liened in the event that something will happen to that cow. So therefore, you have to pay if your father left over real estate, because this Rava would argue Rapapa. Man the Masna law sefer, one that put it on the sefer that if you slaughtered it, that's when you pay. Aval Aresha, but in the beginning when it dies, loy Hain Rapapa. That's what Rapapa said. Since when it died, it wasn't in the hands of the father, right? Since when it actually died, it wasn't the father's obligation. It was actually in the hands of the kids. So just because the father left over real estate, they don't have to pay. And that's exactly what Rav Papa said, that when do you become obligated to pay on a mishap is only when the event happens, not prior. Okay, let's do Gemara. Let's go back to the old question, okay? Just to recap, just a very simple question. In our Mishnah, it said, we learned in our Mishnah that if you have relations with your sister, you're obligated to pay, right? You're obligated to pay knas. In the Mishnah in Malkus, we say you're not obligated to pay knas. You just get the Malkus. So how do you resolve that? So we had two terutzim. To recap, Rabbi Yochanan said that our Mishnah is talking about when you did not warn him. And when you did not warn somebody, so then he was not getting Malkus. He only has the obligation to pay. That's why our Mishnah says pay. And the Mishnah in Malkus, which says you get Malkus when you have relations with your sister, is talking about what? When they did warn him. If they did warn him, you're getting Malkus and you're not going to pay. That was Rabbi Yochanan's answer. Rav Shlokish's answer, if you remember yesterday, we said Rav Shlokish answered that our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Meir. Rabbi Meir says, even if you get Malkus, you always have to pay. So the Gemara now asks the question. It's very understandable why Rabbi Yochanan did not want to say like Resh Lakish, because he doesn't want to say our Mishnah goes like one person, like this Rabbi Meir. The Kalmoikim law Karabanim. He says our Mishnah goes according to Rabbanim that you never pay when you're getting Malkus. You always potter from paying when you're getting Malkus. Therefore, our Mishnah is talking about when you're not getting Malkus because you didn't get the warning. Ella Rish Lakish by time Rabbi Yochanan. Why didn't Rish Lakish agree with Rabbi Yochanan that our Mishnah goes according to the Rabbanim? And no, he says our Mishnah goes according to Rabbi Meir. That's making our Mishnah the opinion of one person. Not like the Rabbanim. Amalach, so Rish Lakish will answer you. Rish Lakish will answer you like this. And this is a very interesting thing. We have a rule, like if you get Malkus, you don't pay. According to Rabbanim, if you get Malkus, you don't pay. Rish Lakish is going to extend that further, that even if you didn't get Malkus, but since you had the potential to get Malkus, the fact is that when you're not getting Malkus, they're not because they didn't warn you, but you had the potential to get Malkus if they would have warned you. So Rish Lakish holds you're not obligated to pay. So it's even very interesting. Amalach, Rish Lakish will tell you, Kivin the ilu asrabe, if they would have warned you about sleeping with your sister, right? Potter. You agree that you're potter because you're getting Malkus. Ki loy asrabe, so even if they didn't warn you, but you had the potential to get Malkus, Nami Potter, you're not obligated to pay you're not obligated to pay for the knas. So that's how Rish Lakish doesn't agree with Rabbi Yochanan. The Arzula Tamayu and Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish go according to their own reasoning. When Rabbi Dimi came from Eretz Yisrael, he learned by Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, and he said over a teaching. Let's say a guy has chayave mises shogigin. Let's say by mistake he did an avera that's chayav misa. Let's say he did a mistake. He wasn't warned, and he's also obligated to pay. Okay, so v'chayavi malchus shogigin, or by mistake he was over malchus, so he's not going to get malchus, but it's by mistake. But the davar acha, but there's a money component in it. So would he pay the money since he's not getting the death penalty and not getting the malchus? Would he pay the money component? Rabbi Yochanan Amachayev, he would still have to pay the money component, and that's the same thing in our Mishnah. Basically, you're sleeping with your sister, you're not getting warned, and therefore Rabbi Yochanan says that's what our Mishnah is basically saying. You're obligated to pay the knas. You're not getting malchus. But Rish Lakish says you will be potter because since you had potential to get malchus, therefore you're potter. So, and the Gemara elaborates. Rabbi Yochanan Amachayev. Rabbi Yochanan says the you have to pay because they didn't give you a warning, and that's why you're obligated to pay. Rish Lakish ama potter, even the ilu asrabe potter, ilu asrabe nami potter. Rish Lakish is fantastic. He said that since you had the potential to get knas, even if you don't get malchus, even if you're not going to get the malchus, you're still not going to be obligated to pay. So according to Rish Lakish, you can't say our Mishnah is a case where you didn't warn him. If they didn't warn him, he's not going to pay either. So that's why Rabbi Lakish had to say our Mishnah is that rogue opinion, Rabbi Meir, who holds that in all cases, even if you get malchus, you're obligated to pay. That's how Rish Lakish answered. Esvei Rish Lakish Rabbi Yochanan. Rish Lakish asked the question to Rabbi Yochanan. The pasuk said, we had this pasuk the other day. Ki yinatzu anashim achla. We have this pasuk on the screen. If two men have an argument, and a woman, the wife of one of them, tries to intervene, and one guy gives a deadly blow, a real knockout punch to the woman who's pregnant, and she miscarried. V'lo yeh asen. The Torah says, but no tragedy happened. What does that mean? V'lo yeh asen. Pashtus, it means that the woman did not die. Onish, then he has to pay money for the cost because he caused somebody to miscarriage. So what Rabbi Yochanan is going to medayek, but if the woman did die, then there would not be a punishment. You have to pay money. So what does the Gemara say? Right? The Torah says if there was no tragedy, you get punished. My love, asun mamish, that if the woman did not die. And therefore, that's when you pay the Demei Velados. You have to pay for the miscarriage. But if the woman did die, even if you were not warned, right? But you're in the potential of having a death penalty on you, you're putter from paying. So that's a beautiful thing. It's a question against Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan said that if you didn't get warned, you have to pay. Why does the pasuk say that if she didn't die, only if she didn't die, you have to pay? Even if she did die, according to Rabbi Yochanan, if you weren't warned, if you also have to pay. And says the Gemara, loy, not so. Din asay. What the Mishnah means, not the loy asay means that they're not punishing him. There's no tragedy of him. In other words, he doesn't get the death penalty. Then he gets the punishment. That's when he gets. But if he got the death penalty, only if he got the death penalty because he got warned, then then he would not have to pay money. So it's a real shot question, how you learn shot in this pasuk. According to Rish Lakish, v'lo also means the woman didn't die. According to Rabbi Yochanan, v'lo also means that the man does not get the death penalty. Either he wasn't warned or he did it by accident. Then he pays. But if he does, only if he gets the death penalty, then he doesn't have to pay. So it's a real machlokes in the Gemara how to learn a pasuk in Parshas Mishpatim. Others had the version just the opposite. What do you mean? It means that he didn't get the death penalty. And Rabbi Shlakish answers, "Lo, it means asin mamish, she didn't die." So that's where we're up to right now. Is that according to Rish Lakish, whenever there is a possibility of getting malchus, whenever there is a possibility of getting misa, even if they didn't give you the misa, even if they didn't give you the malchus, but you were in that possibility range, so you'll never be obligated to pay if there's a monetary obligation there as well. So the Gemara asks the question, Amar Rava. Rava asks the question against Rish Lakish. Mi iklaman de Yama. Is it possible that you, Rish Lakish, could be an opinion that will say chayave misa shoygigin chayaven, that if you're chayav misa, if you did it by mistake, right? Let's give the example of a person who was, let's say, he killed somebody by mistake and tore his clothing. He killed somebody by mistake and tore his clothing. Does he have to pay for the suit? So would there be an opinion that because he's not getting the death penalty, he would be obligated to pay for the suit? How could that be? There's a Rish Lakish is an Amora. He can't argue against the Tana. But Torah de Cheskia taught Makeh Adam uMakeh Behema. The Torah compares when you kill a human being to when you kill an animal. Just like when you kill an animal, the Torah says Lo chilakta boy bein b'shoigig bein b'mezid bein miskaven l'shein miskaven bein derech yirida l'derech aliyah l'poitrimon l'chayvimam. Just no matter how you kill an animal, doesn't matter if you did it on purpose or by mistake or with your uphand motion or downhand motion, you're always going to be obligated to pay for the animal. So now the opposite case would hold true. Af make adam, even if you kill a human being, even if you did it by mistake, like tachlik boy, don't make any differentiation. Bein b'shoigig, even if you do it by mistake, you're going to be not obligated to pay money. You don't have to pay for the suit. Bein b'mezid, bein miskaven, l'shem miskaven, dein derech rila, l'chayve b'mammon, ela poitrei b'mammon. You're not obligated to pay for the money. So it cannot be that Rish Lakish would argue against this and hold that if somebody is obligated if somebody did something that he would be potentially chayav misa, let's say he killed somebody by accident, he would have to pay for the suit. That cannot be. So that cannot be. Even Rabbi Yochanan would not agree to argue against Chizkiah. So that's also Rabbi Yochanan holds. How could Rabbi Yochanan disagree against Chizkiah? That's the point. How could Rabbi Yochanan disagree against Chizkiah? Elok, he also Ravin. When Ravin came from Eretz Yisrael, he explained it better. Everybody agrees. Chayav misa shoygigin. If you chayav misa if you would have been chayav misa, but you did the avera by mistake. Again, you killed somebody and you ripped his suit. Kuli almaloi pligi. Even Rabbi Yochanan would hold the peturim. You're not obligated to pay for the suit. Ki pligi, when is Rabbi Yochanan arguing? Only when is Rabbi Yochanan arguing against Rish Lakish? B'chayave malchus shoygigim v'dora achar. If you're in a situation where you could get malchus and you have a monetary obligation, for example, you're sleeping with your sister, right? So you're sleeping with your sister, you have to pay the 50 shekel. If you did it by mistake, according to Rabbi Yochanan, if you did it by mistake or you were not warned, so you're not going to get the malchus, Rabbi Yochanan says chayiv, you're obligated to pay. Because why would you be chayiv to pay? Because chayav mises ishkish, chayav malchus loy ishkish. Because the Torah only compared chayav mises killing the chayav mises, the situation where you get the death penalty, to the situation of killing an animal. But chayav malchus, we don't find that if you do an avera that you're getting malkish, it's not like killing an animal that you'll always be potted to pay. Corresponding to killing an animal, you'll be chayav to pay. Even if there's a chayav malchus, but you're not getting malchus, and you have a monetary obligation, according to Rabbi Yochanan, you're obligated to pay. But Rish Lakish will say potter, you'll be potter even on a chayav malchus. Why? The Torah says that malchus has the same dinin like misa. Just like by misa, if it's by accident, there's no monetary obligations. So also by malchus, there is no monetary obligation, even if you're not getting the malchus. How do you know? Where did the Torah compare the two? Amar Abaya said, Asya Rasha. The Torah says when you kill somebody, the Torah calls, when somebody gets the death penalty, he's called Ashehu Rasha Lamas. And when you get the Malchus, the Torah says, Boy bin Hakis Rasha. So it uses the same noun to describe the person getting Malchus and the person getting Misa. Just like the person getting Misa doesn't have any monetary obligation, even if he's not getting the Misa, even if he does it by accident, even if he's not getting Misa or he wasn't warned, he's not going to have any monetary obligation. So also, when you get malchus, even if you don't get malchus, you have no monetary obligation. So Abaya had it from Asya Rasha. The Rava says Asya Make. We have a comparison between Make Behema to a Make of Adam. So the Gemara says Amalei Rava Hey Make, which Make will compare malchus to the animal situation. Are you going to use this pasuk? Make behema yishalmena. If you kill an animal, you pay him. Or make adam, you must. But if you kill a human being, you get the death penalty. So that's not a malchus situation that compares to the animal. Hide b'ktoluksiv. That's talking about if you're killing people. That's a death penalty situation. Elahai make. It's this pasuk that compares the two. If you damage an animal, you have to pay for it. Nefesh tachash nefesh. Usmichle, then the Torah says, the ish ki temum ba'misoy. If you damage somebody, you actually wounded somebody, your friend, you didn't kill him. Kashi you also can, you also loy. Whatever is done to you should be done to him. So whatever was done, it should be done back to him. So there, the Torah juxtaposes damaging an animal to damaging a human being. And just like damaging a human being, there's a malchus, you don't have to pay. There's no malchus, and you don't have to pay. So that's the Gemara's question. Wait a second. First, the Gemara says, maki. They don't have the same words, make. So the Gemara says, no, hakol kamrin. That kiyitin mum ba misoy is the same thing as make nefesh. Make nefesh means you whacked an animal and you damaged it. And yitin mum is the same idea of damaging another person from your nation. So the Gemara says, if that pasuk is talking about that's talking about that you damaged your friend, and that's just the opposite, what you're learning. That when you damage your friend, you're not going to get the malchus, you're going to pay. We're trying to find a situation that you're getting malchus and you're not going to pay. And even if you're not going to get the malchus, you're still not going to pay. So the Gemara says, if it's not discussing a whack that has a shava pruta, which is when you did monetary damage, because there the Chumash says that you have to pay the money. The Torah says you have to pay doctor bills and the damages that you did. So that we know from other psukim. So then this pasuk, this will teach you in a situation that where there is no monetary damage. Let's say you whacked somebody and it wasn't worth a penny. He didn't lose a penny from it. So then you give him malchus. But that means you're choosing malchus over $0. But that's not what we're looking for. We go to Lamed Hey Amabeit. Lamed Hey Amabeit. Soif la bar tishlumini. That's not an obligation to pay. So of course you're going to give him the malchus. You're facing giving him malchus will be mechayivim 0. Certainly you give him the malchus in that situation. It's not the mehadi the mechayid korshurayan delay. It's talking about you as you were whacking somebody, right? You actually tore his suit. Oh, so if you tore his suit, but you didn't damage him per se, right? You didn't cause him a damage, you caused his suit a damage. So therefore you're faced with a malchus situation, and you're faced with actually a monetary obligation to pay for the suit. The Torah says that you're always going to get the malchus and not pay for the suit, because that's not a physical damage to his body, so you don't have to pay for the suit. And even if they didn't warn you to that you're going to get the malchus, since you're in a malchus situation, you had potential to get malchus, the way Rish Lakish is learning, you'll always be not obligated to pay for the suit, even if you're not going to end up getting the malchus. So where we're holding right now is two more things. Is that we are holding that right now is the machlekes Rabbi Yochanan or Shlokish only by chayvei malchus. By chayvei mises, by mistake, you always no obligation to pay. Rabbi Yochanan holds by chayvei malchus, if you're not getting the malchus, you're obligated to pay. Rabbi Shlokish holds even if you're not getting the malchus, you're still not obligated to pay. Now the Gemara asks one question, but chayvei mises, if you're getting the death penalty, you're never obligated to pay because of Tana de Becheskia. Amale Rav Chia L'Rava Ulatana de Becheskia. According to Tana de Becheskia, the Amma who said, "Make Odomu Make Behema," killing a human being is like killing an animal. Just like you're killing an animal, you always have to pay. When you're killing a human being, even if you did it by accident, you're not obligated to pay. You're not obligated. You have no monetary obligations. So, umamai, all the charges on your monetary obligations are dropped. So Gemara says, umamai, how did Rabbi Chizkiah learn that from the pasuk? Umamai de bechol ksiv. How do you know that the killing of the animal occurred during the weekday? The lake in lafluge. That's why the Torah says in the animal situation, you're always going to pay the money. Dilma, maybe the animal situation is a situation. Dilma b'Shabbos ksiv. Maybe the animal situation is on Shabbos, and it was by accident. That's why it's by accident. The behema gufa ikal by behema, if you did it by accident, since you're killing this animal on Shabbos, but you're doing by accident, hence the Torah say you're getting the death penalty, and you're going to have to obligate it. You're potentially could get the death penalty, and you have to pay for the animal because you're killing an animal on Shabbos is a chil Shabbos, and the Torah says nevertheless you still have to pay for the animal. So maybe even by chayavim mises, by shoygig, with monetary obligation, you would have to pay. The Gemara says, "Loi sal kedaitech." I would never think that the pasuk is talking about you're killing the animal on Shabbos. The pasuk says, "Umaka behema yishal meno, umaka adam yumas." The Torah says that when you're killing the behema, you're going to pay. When you're killing the animal, when you're killing a human being, you're going to get the death penalty. Hey chadami, what's that case talking about? Either like asrabe, if you didn't warn the guy, so maki adam amayumas. Why would a guy who killed a human being get the death penalty? Ella pshita must be that the asrabe, that they warned him. So if they warned him, so then he's actually getting the death penalty. So then the Shabbos, it's talking about Shabbos. Why would he have to pay? He's actually getting the death penalty. Certainly he doesn't have to pay. Elalav, the pasuk is bechol. It's talking about during the weekday. And the Torah is always telling you a situation where when you kill an animal, you always have to pay for the animal. When you kill a human being, you never have to pay. Not only if you get the death penalty, but even if you don't get the death penalty, the fact you were in a situation that you could have gotten the death penalty, you're not obligated to pay. One more, the last line of Gemara. Amalei Rapapa la Abaya, and then we'll stop. Rapapa said to Abaya, remember, Rabbah learned a situation that Rabbi Meir, who said you loika umashalim, right? Rabbi Meir holds that you get malchus and you have to pay, right? And even Rabbi Meir will hold that when you get the death penalty, or when you get malchus, you have to pay knas. Okay, that means that you don't have to pay monetary obligations, but set fines from the Torah, you do have to pay. The Oma who said, Rabbi holds, Chidish hu shechitcha Torah. The Torah came up with the novelty beknas. When the Torah gives you that fine, that afagav the miktal masham, Rabbi holds that even if you can get the death penalty. Now, we just got through saying, whenever you get the death penalty, no monetary obligation. But that's only monetary obligation. Opposed a fine that the Torah says, mishalim, you do have to pay. So that's Rabba's opinion. So Masnisan Kama Moikelo. Who would he interpret our Mishnah? Like our Mishnayos that say that when you sleep with your sister, you pay knas. When you sleep with your daughter, you don't have to pay knas because you're getting the death penalty. Rab Meir, if it goes according to Rab Meir, that holds you have to, when you're getting the death penalty or when you're getting malchus, you have to pay. There's no such a thing. You're not obligated to pay. But kashya bitoy, then we have a situation of why wouldn't you pay the knas? Even if you slept with your daughter, even if you're giving you misa, you should have to pay the knas. Why does the Mishnah say later on that when you sleep with your daughter, you don't have to pay because you're getting the death penalty, you don't have to pay knas? According to Rabbah, knas, a fine that the Torah said, you're always obligated to pay that fine. And then we're going to say, Ikrab Nechunya ben Hakana, if he went like Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana, not only is Bitoy a question, but Kashya Choyser, Nechunya ben Hakana said that when you get Kores, you don't have to pay. Misa, you don't have to pay. There's no such thing. You get Misa and pay. And even when you get Kores, you don't have to pay. For example, on Yom Kippur, if you burn somebody's field down, you don't have to pay for the field on Yom Kippur, because that is the opinion of Chuny Bekana. Even though on Yom Kippur you don't get Misa for Michal Yom Kippur, you get Kares. He says there's no monetary obligations for Kares. If so, then why is it when you sleep with your sister, when that is a Isser Kares, therefore you should be parted from paying. Why are you obligated to pay in our Mishnah that's knas when you sleep with your sister? Because even when you sleep with your sister, you're getting malchus. And when you're getting malchus, even Rabbi Chuny ben Hakana says you have to pay. Ik Rabbi Yitzchak kashim mamzeres. If you're going to go according to Rabbi Yitzchak, who says that any chorus does not get malchus, you have to know that opinion, kashim mamzeres, then why does our Mishnah say that I'm sleeping with a mamzeres, you have to pay knas? According to Rabbi Nechunya ben Hakana, once you get malchus, you don't have to pay. So why does our Mishnah say that you do have to pay? So the simple answer Rabbi could learn is like Rabbi Yochanan. He could learn like Rabbi Yochanan, but our Mishnah, the topic is that they did not warn him. If they're not warning him, he's not getting malchus, he's not getting kares, he's not getting misa, and that's why in our Mishnah you're paying the fine. So Rabbi will agree to the teretz of Rabbi Yochanan. But if he held like Rosh Lakish, that there's no difference between warning and not warning him, once you're in a situation that you potentially could have gotten malchus, according to Rosh Lakish, you're not obligated to pay. How would Rabbah interpret their Mishnah? So what the Gemara just said is that Rabbah will interpret the Mishnah the way Rabbi Yochanan interpret our Mishnah. Our Mishnah is talking about they didn't warn him, and that's why he has to pay. That's why he has to pay the fine. One more point. Rabbah must have held like Rabbi Yochanan. One last question, and then we wrap it up. Rabbi Matana said to Abaya, Rish Lakish. Rish Lakish said, the Omar, he said, Beferish rips Torah, the Torah includes Chayav Malchus, Chayav Misas. That Malchus is like Chayav Misa. What does that mean? That just like Chayav Misa, anytime you have the potential to get the death penalty, all monetary obligations are dropped in the case. So also, if you have the potential to get malchus, all monetary obligation are dropped. So the Gemara asks, Man Tana de Palik Allah Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana. Who's going to be the Tana that argues against Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana? Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana came up with this novel idea, and he said that if I light somebody's backyard on Yom Kippur, I don't have to pay money because why? Because I'm getting kares. You get kares if you light somebody's backyard on Yom Kippur, you're going to get kares. Everybody will, so therefore you don't have to pay for the monetary damage, the fire damage. Well, everybody will hold that. Why? Because since every kares has a malchus associated with it, so you're in a malchus situation. When you're in a potential malchus situation, you never have an obligation to pay, even if you're not going to get the malchus, even if you didn't get a warning, you still wouldn't have to pay. So everybody should agree, in theory, to Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana's case of lighting a fire and burning down somebody's field on Yom Kippur. You certainly don't have to pay. Who would argue on that? So Rab Meir. You can learn that Rab Meir argues Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana because he holds in every malchus situation you always pay. Now, Rab Meir is the rogue shita that holds that there's no such a thing. Monetary obligations are dropped. You're getting malchus, you're going to pay also. Or Rabbi Yitzchak. Rabbi Yitzchak could argue against Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana. Rabbi Yitzchak holds that when every kares does not have a malchus associated with it, you just get kares. There's no such thing a malchus associated with kares. So therefore, according to Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana, because you're getting kares when you're getting kares, therefore you're not obligated to pay. According to Rabbi Yitzchak, since you're not getting malchus, you will be obligated to pay, and Rabbi Yitzchak will be the one that argued against Rabbi Nechunya ben Akana. Okay, so wraps up the daf. The key to remember is the machlekes between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish. Everybody holds when you get the death penalty or the potential to get the death penalty, all monetary obligations in the case are dropped. But if you're getting malchus or the potential to get malchus, the point is that the potential to get malchus, according to Rabbi Yochanan, if you didn't get the malchus because they didn't warn you or you did it by accident, you're obligated to pay. According to Rish Lakish, you're not obligated to pay. And that's why they get two different terutzim on the stira between our Mishnah and the stira in Masechta Malchus.